What's up, guys? Jason Payne, the host of the Sexy Business Status Podcast. I'm here with my boy Pete. How do you say it? Meyerhoff?
There you go.
Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
Meyerhoff. They call him Chappy, right? Mr. Chappy. And local, you live in Chandler?
Yeah. Well, actually, I just moved to Biltmore area.
Oh, you're Biltmore. Okay. Yeah. So he's here in Arizona. And so we had MenaceCon in January, and we had a bunch of speakers and whatnot. And Pete's really good buddies with Josh Snow. And Josh Snow is friends with, we're going to make this a point coming up here. He's buddies with Los Hustle, right? Who lives in Miami.
Yep.
And so Los was speaking and they were talking whatever. He's like, dude, I'm in town. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, dude, come over here. So we got Josh to show up to Wild Horse. Pete, you rolled with him and
he randomly texted me too. He's like, yo, where are you at? He's like, I'm at this event right by your house. Don't you live over here? Because I told him I lived right over by. Then I looked up. I was like, oh yeah, I'm 8 minutes from. He's like, come through. I was like, bet, I'm there.
Yeah, you're like, I'm on the 202, 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. So that whole line of events. So from that, so Kent had an event. I'm in his mastermind. He hooked us up with Los, then Los to Josh to you, and here we are, man. Yeah. So it's kind of funny when you follow the train. Like, how did you and so meet? How do you know so and so? And then from there, talking about transactional versus transformational. It's one of my core values. Be transformational, not transactional. And I just want to thank you for being genuine and not being that cocky asshole that's like, because other guys come and speak, right? And they're like, you have to pay them, or they do it and then you never hear from them again, or like you try and get a hold of them and they're all of a sudden like, who the fuck are you?
Those guys all fizzle out too.
Right. And Carlos Reyes was on our podcast before MenaceCon, and he talked about that. He's like, dude, he's like, some of those guys are going to be transactional and just keep that relationship as is. He's like, you can try and make it transformational, but if it doesn't happen, don't get butthurt. Just,
for sure.
Some people are just like that.
Yep.
He's like, but the other way around, and Carlos is a very transformational type person. He personally reached out once all this Menace blow up bullshit went around. He actually called me. He heard from somebody else. He called Nick. Wow. And he and Nick were going back and forth about what happened in the story and all that shit. And then he's like, where's Jason? And he's like, he's probably working. I don't know. He's in Arizona. I'm in San Diego. He's like, dude, call him. So it turned into a 3-way call, hour and a half later, right? Yeah. Just fucking Carlos being a G. So running with that, the case in point for that conversation was you, like I said, I brought you on, we brought you on our podcast, right? Heard your story.
Yep.
And I don't want to go too deep into your story because I already have it on camera. But I do want people to know.
Cameras too.
Oh yeah, that story's on YouTube for sure. But I want to talk about how important it is when you're building a business, you own a business, right? Most of the listeners listening are small business owners.
Yep.
Your average business owner has less than 10 employees, does less than $3 million in revenue, and goes out of business in 5 years. And so that's my target market, is to reach out to them and get them out of that. And mostly it's because their culture sucks. They don't have core values. They don't know how to lead, right? And so they stay in that owner-operator space. Yep. And they never get out of that to be able to scale and do 5, 8, 10, 20, $100 million. Yeah. And so that's what I want. So when it comes to relationships, how has that helped you from when you got out of jail to where you are now? I mean, it was, you've been on a rocket ship the past, how many years have you been out?
I've been out actually, what's funny is I've been out 7 years now. But
7 years,
first
okay.
5 years I was in the car biz. I was a finance manager. No one heard from me. I didn't do Instagram. I didn't have social media.
Yeah, but I want to roll with that though. So 5 years of, you killed it in the car game, made a shit ton of money. But what happened to your relationships there? Like, or lack thereof compared to the past 2 years?
Yeah, I had none. I didn't know anybody. That's all I did was work, and I feel like prison kind of taught me this a lot more than the rest of the people, because in prison, like if you ruin a relationship, like you could also be costing yourself your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's seriously like that. Like it's life and death in prison. So
Sure.
It's like pulling a little scam, like, what so-and-so did, like you lose your life in there in prison over that. So like people don't like, out here, people ruin relationships because they get greedy and they don't have hustle and they can't make money themselves, and they're like, it's just a quick, easy way out. But it's like in prison, you literally can't do that because
you can't disappear.
Yeah, and you can't disappear. You're not going nowhere. Like you're gonna try and jack somebody and live in a cell right next to them. You know what I mean? What do you think's gonna happen next time your cell's crack?
Yeah.
So it's like
watching TV, they got screwdrivers.
Yeah, it taught me no, for real, but it taught me real well. Like there's no running from people. Like people will always find you out, and there's like your name is all you have in this world. You know what I'm saying? And like your word is all you have. Like behind all the social media and stuff like that, none of that means anything if people don't believe your word and they don't like trust the person that you are. You know what I'm saying? So like
totally.
My number one rule is always just try to just be as genuine as possible. And just like people are good at reading vibes and and you know, for the most part, you know, when people are lying to you and people are fake or something like that, I always just try to be like super genuine and like just true to myself, and always true to like whatever I tell people. Like you'll never be able to like catch me saying, yo, he said this worked out like this, now he's like flip-flopping or something like that. Like you'll never hear me doing that stuff, because I mean, I was raised in prison. You literally can't do that. So I have it embedded in my head, like that shit doesn't fly.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like I said, you're in a very tight, confined space, and word travels fast, and
Very fast.
And people think that, you know, out of prison, that they can get away with shit and that people won't find out, and you can just bury stuff, you know, put it under the rug. My wife's favorite saying is like, oh, you know, the bury the stuff under the rug, put it under the rug. Is like, but when your pile of shit is so big that you put under the rug looks like a boner. Like it's like there's a big old mound, right? Absolutely. And it's like it doesn't just go away. And so it might be under the rug to where you can't see it, but like you lift it up and it's still there. It does not magically go away. Yeah, even with time, it doesn't, right? Because like I said, you were off camera. We were talking about people being burned and getting burned and stuff like that, and that could be 1, 3, 5, 10 years ago, right? It's not like, oh, that happened last week.
Yeah.
And so those relationships,
and people don't forget. And here's the deal: like you could not even know somebody that like they don't even know your name because you're not on that status yet. And then like a couple of years, you get a little momentum going, but then you rip somebody off 2 years ago. Yes. And these two guys are friends. Like you can't do anything. Then it literally tarnishes your entire what you're trying to do. Like it's literally ruined from some little scam that made you maybe a few $1,000 years ago. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you literally will ruin your whole life without a few $1,000.
Yeah, and 98% of the time it's money driven. Yeah, right.
And here's the deal: when it's even money, it's not like residual income money. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like a little chump of change. And like, it's a one-off. In the next few months, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes. What are you going to do in the next few months when that money runs out? Yeah, because it does. Yeah, totally. And that's my biggest thing is like that money is going to go away, and that's why we're talking to people that want to acquire businesses, and they're like, oh, I want to start a business. And they're like, oh, I'm going to go get a loan, and then they're like, oh, well, they're not going to charge me any interest. They just want 10% of my business, and I'm like, holy shit! I'm like. Okay, be careful. I'm like, because I was talking to him about, you know, getting like a hard money loan. Yeah. 20% interest rate, you know, $100,000 loan, okay, you owe them 120, right? So you pay back your $100,000 loan, you know, whatever your terms are, and then you only owe them $20,000. I'm like, but that $20,000 goes, I mean, you blink and that 20 grand's gone. Literally. Instead of like, oh, I'll give you 10%, but you don't have to owe me anything. It sounds appealing to those that aren't experienced in it, but in the back end, like 10%. But then like me, 4 years later, you got a $13 million roofing company that someone owns 10% because he gave me $10, $20, $50,000 4 years ago. Yeah. And I was telling you off camera, I have a $100,000 a week payroll. I was like, what he would have given me would have paid for 2/10, 20% of 1 week of payroll. Yeah. 1 week but he would have, you know. That's how broke some of these dudes are living, though. And they act like they're ballers, and they want to be like these entrepreneurs, and like the goal of what to be right there. And these fools are stealing like thousands of dollars, like have no money to get by. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, think about that. Imagine tarnishing your name for even $10, $20, $50,000. Yeah. Because you make that $50,000, there's no chance you're making that $50,000 in the same industry anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Well, and talk about, we were talking about just before about how it went from, you know, Kent to Los to Josh to you to here, and other relationships as well too. I mean, Sheriff Lamb's coming on. That was from you. Shout out to my boy Sheriff Lamb. Good old Sheriff Lamb. He's gonna be on here next week. And like I said, but if you burn that relationship, you are not just burning that one. You're burning all the other ones too, because the people will. And it's not like a as you see on TV background check. It's just straight up like, yo, is this guy good or yes or no? That's it. That's what all it is. And it'll be like no. Yeah, or be like, scam my buddy for $2,000 or something like back then. Yeah, I'd be like, no, I'll be like, I've heard nothing but bad things about this dude, or he fucked over X or Y or Z person. Yeah, right. Or the opposite. Oh yeah, dude's is genuine as shit. Everybody loves him. You know what I'm saying? Then we're talking about Daniel Fleshman, right? Yes. Daniel Fleshman, and he just did a podcast with Sean Whalen just a little bit ago, and his like RV, his moneymaker, whatever thing. So Money funny. Mondays. Money Mondays. There you go. It's so funny. Yeah. And he's killing it too. #1 podcast already dropped like 2 weeks ago. It's crazy. Already. Yeah. Friggin'. And that's another point right there. When you're genuine and you're literally a good dude, like people sense that. Like, how do you think Fleischman built his whole network? Being a genuine good person. Yeah. Like, he don't look like me or you. He don't look jacked. Like, he's not like, he's never had the fitness people like following him. Like, he's like the most, if Dan ever catches this, I mean this in a nice way possible, Dan, but like he's just the guy next door, just like a regular old dude, and has more connections than anyone you can possibly imagine, and like will literally pass off his connections to you. And like, yeah, dude, what he did for my name is like, I can't even tell you what he did. When he came on my show, when I ran into him in Salt Lake City, we just had this talk. Sure. And then he comes out to do my show, and then he invites me to lunch with all his like baller homies. So like, this is how you know you're in with Dan Fleischman, because when he comes to town, whenever he speaks or something like that, then he always sets up like a lunch or dinner or something like that with all his like big baller homies.
Yeah,
just to check
local
in.
dudes.
Yeah, local guys,
Yeah.
right? And whatever city
Genius,
he's in.
by the way.
Right, super smart, right?
Genius.
So he asked me after we get done doing the show, and I was like getting ready to take him back. And like, keep in mind, Denflation's at my house, and I'm like my 10th episode of my podcast, and like I have a home studio, and
which
stuff.
is insane.
Yeah, and I like pick him up. He told me he was coming. Like I still didn't believe he was coming, and then like he texted me that day. He's like, "Here's the address I'm at." I'm like, "Oh my god, he's literally coming over to my house." You know what I'm saying? I even told my podcast, I was like, "Fleischman's coming on the table." Like it just seems kind of crazy to me, but Fleischman said I'm picking him up at 2:00 today.
Yeah.
And I go pick him up, and it's just like the coolest dude ever. We do the whole podcast. It's just like so genuine. Afterwards, he's like, "What are you doing now?" I was like, "Whatever you say, sir. I'll take you wherever you want." He's like, "We're gonna go out to lunch." He's like, "You want to come join us?" And I'm just like, "I'm going anywhere you let me go." You know what I'm saying? I literally told him just like that verbatim. I was like,
until you leave the state,
100%. I'm gonna follow your side until you tell me I'm not allowed to follow your side.
Yeah,
anymore,
like go away. Yeah.
So we go there, and I'm like, probably 14, 16 dudes, like Pace, Morby, Jamil, all those guys are there.
Sure. Yeah,
Casey Thompson,
Pace
the
lives
local
here.
poker.
Yep.
And I'm not joking. Like half these dudes that are talking about like buying a 737 jet because this other jet's too small. And I'm just like, holy crap. Like
me
I'm not
in my home studio.
trying to keep a straight face here. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, but I'm soaking up the game. And all I'm doing is just like being a fly on the wall. And I'm like listening and like putting this back in my mind because like these are conversations you hear at tables like that is worth more than any college education you could ever get. You know what I'm saying? Like,
1000%.
I still have an 8th grade education. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like my family that graduated high school, I have none of my family that went to college. But like I made more than anybody in both sides of my family my first year out of prison with an 8th grade education. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like I'm not a fan of school and all that stuff. Like this is where school is at, and this is where like life is if you want to like try and get to the next level. And then Dan comes back like 6 months later, shoots me a random text like, "Hey, coming to town speaking at this thing. We're all gonna meet up at Toka Madera, blah blah." So I'm like, holy shit, what does it tell you right there? Now, not only did you do my show, but I'm in this circle now.
Yep.
Right?
You're in the
And then
conversation.
I go to this circle, and then it's like, that's when I met Wags. So then I met Wags, and we just talked on Instagram. But then and you know what's funny is I'm at Toka Madera, and I was on the phone with the dude. We were just talking about Dane, and I was just like, I wonder if Wags is gonna be. I'm like, I figure Wags got to be there because I happened to look at his social media. I saw he just flew his jet into Scottsdale the night before, and as I'm talking about this, I see Wags pull up in his Escalade. I was like, oh shit, all right, this is cool.
He's here.
And then it's like Dr. D's there who does Jake Paul's doctor. Like you can't even imagine all these people that are there, and it's just like, dude, before you know, it's like half that table was like all migrated over to my side of the table, and we're like wanting to hear prison stories about me, and I'm just like, what is I mean, there's literally $1 billion between all these guys. You know what I'm saying? All they want to do is hear prison stories from me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I was like expecting to just be a fly on the wall. Now it's like these dudes all want to hear what I say, but it's like, it shows me, it gives me confidence that like, dude, it's like you can use your past or your prison stuff as like a benefit to the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? It's like
totally.
I can show you that like, yo, this whole life that I live, like when doing this thieving, robbing, stealing, all this stuff, it's not cool, but I've done enough, and I showed you enough, like, you know, just by what I've seen that you don't want no part of that life, right? You know what I'm saying? So like, let me experience that stuff, and I'll show you how to get on top after that. But like, I've shown you enough that you don't need to experience that shit yourself. You firmly believe, and you know that life is not for you to live. You know what I'm saying? And that's how the world is. Like, you can literally like live off other people's. You can like work off other people's mistakes and like live right through them without having to experience it yourself.
So Pace was at MenaceCon, and he talked about it on our podcast before the conference, and he talked about just that. He's like, the power of leveraging relationships is if you have a trade or you have a skill set or you know how to do something really, really well, some sort of tech thing, right? And you spent 30 years doing it. By me being now connected to you, I now get those 30 years.
Yep.
And I didn't have to do anything.
Yep.
Except for just create that relationship. Now you have to add value, right? You don't want to be the hollow guy that doesn't even give anything back. But that's the best part is like, okay, cool. Well, I can talk to you. You know, you could have an in-depth with experience, proven experience of addiction, alcoholism, right? Being in jail and what to do and what not to do there.
Yeah.
And so by being related to that, I don't need to go steal shit and go to jail for 7 years, right, to learn what you did.
Yeah.
Right? I just need to be like, okay, I need to create that relationship and that contact to know anything about that kind of stuff. I now have that information, and information's key, right?
Yeah.
And the relationship, so between the information and the relationship, like I now have that. And now like Pace is going to come on. He's doing a book tour right now.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Montana all of July. I just texted him yesterday. And he's going to be on in that little gap. He's going to come in. But that's what he talked about. And he's like, what you do is you go into these rooms and you start to collaborate and connect with these people. And he's like, as long as you're just genuine and you're authentic and you're a real dude, people don't care if you're killing it. Or they don't want you. First of all, if you're being just a lazy ass sitting with a bag of potato chips on your couch, you're gonna be fucking invited to those restaurants, or those lunches, or those 100%. Podcasts anyways, right? Yep. So the fact that you are doing, you are hustling and you're trying, doesn't matter if those dudes have freaking Wags, almost $1 billion real estate portfolio and restaurants and all that shit. But like, he'll come in and sit down and hang out and have dinner. And
if you've been following the guy for that long, you see this isn't like literally not an overnight thing. Like he's been at this, and like he didn't have all this money. Like he's literally has built this.
No.
And I've been watching and following it for that long. And
I love his story.
Yeah,
coming from
so dope,
playing
bro.
football from Canada and coming down and all that stuff. It's crazy. So the word that one of my buddies Nate uses is the word leverage.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you? And I want people to hear this too, because some people will abuse a relationship and not use it. Abusing it and leveraging it are two very different approaches.
100%.
So give an example to those listening of how to leverage a relationship to maybe create another one, or maybe be able to do a transaction or do a deal with somebody.
I'll give you a perfect scenario too, and this is like it's all about like getting cosigns, or like, you know what I'm saying, you have to live off your word here. So it's like, now it's like when I'm reaching out to like say hypothetically I didn't know Aaron Wagner, you know, and I was trying to get him on my show.
Sure.
What's the first thing you think I'm going to do when I like try to hit him up to come on my podcast? Probably mention that I had Dan Fleischman on my show, right?
Yeah, you start name dropping.
That's what I do. So then it's like, not only do I have this relationship with Dan Fleischman, but now that Dan Fleischman's been on my show, it gives my podcast, Roll Call with Chappy, instant credibility with a whole other crowd that was never there before. Because Fleischman don't waste time with people. He doesn't do shows if he doesn't believe in that stuff.
Totally.
And then it's like, so the first time I'm doing that, I'm like, yo, I've had Dan Fleischman on my show. I have Bradley. So I sent it to him. So it's like, holy shit. Even Bradley, he doesn't do podcasts really. You know, he does a few here and there. It's like, you know, it's funny. I think the last 4 or 5 podcasts Brad did, I got him on all those shows. Like he did my friend Emily's, he did my buddy Carlos's, and like, he does as favorites.
Tommy Mello.
Yeah, but he does as favorites, but he doesn't need to do that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's talk about like leveraging a contact and then like using it for positive stuff afterwards too. Because like, you know why? Because like Dan Fleischman got the vibe from me. Like I'm a good dude and I literally want to help people and I literally want to change the world. Dan Fleischman does as well too. So Dan Fleischman has no problem now helping me out or passing off his connections to me too, which I can leverage those myself because like Dan believes in what I'm doing as it is. And he's met me personally and he knows that like there's a real genuineness to me and like he believes in my mission, and like, why not be a guy like him and help out some guys like us? You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's on the Wagner or Dan Fleischman level. They didn't start on that level either. You know what I'm saying? And there's good people want other people to win. You know what I'm saying? So like, you could be from the start of where you are, and you get in front of Dan Fleischman or Wags. Like those dudes will literally help you. Like you're a billionaire already themselves, just because like they want to see you win. A lot of other people, I think, they want to be able to say that they saw it from the start. I've had a lot of people tell me that. You know what I'm saying? Like Emily Hayden's one of my biggest fans out there, and she's always said this. She's like, I've been waiting for this.
You were nothing. You had 400 followers.
Literally, bro. And I was just like, I'm not, she DM'd me, I was like, what the hell do you want me to talk about? You know what I'm saying? Like, I got interviewed on some prison shows. I thought everybody, all they just want to know was prison stories, you know? And I didn't even know, like, you could build a whole brand over this. You could, like, motivate people that didn't have a past like that, which I didn't even know about at first. And I was selling myself short. So
plug for Max Hall and Brock Bevel. Brock was just on our podcast. I'll get Max in here sooner or later before football season.
Just towards Achilles.
Yeah, I just had surgery.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, I was Achilles. Yeah.
Playing his pickup BYU game.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah. Jeez. So he actually, you know, it's funny how I met him. He coaches football at ALA, and my fiance's mom is the athletic director over there for ALA. So
oh, no way.
She doesn't do social media. I just made her get an Instagram account so I can send her videos, and she's like, I would like to connect someone to your podcast. I was like, who? She's like, Max Hall. I was like, send it. Like, what do you guys, please send it.
Yeah.
So he came to the show and such an awesome, cool dude, you know, and it's like, it's cool hearing the backside of those stories, you know what I'm saying? Because like all you see is the NFL, why he was out of the NFL and all that stuff, and you don't know like real life and death situations and like real everyday problems that everybody else has. Just because you're in the NFL doesn't mean those problems go away.
Addiction, using, especially with athletes, and Brock said it a couple days ago when he was on here. He just said, he's like, dude, it's really not even about athletes. He's like, I know moms that use. He's like, especially, he's like, it's even crazier business owners, because what happens is they get crazy and they build their businesses and then they get bored and they start doing stupid shit. Mm-hmm. Then like, it could be a girl, it could be another, you know, a little +1, little side hustle. Oh, yeah. It could be, and then, or like some sort of a drug, right? Or whatever. And so we had a really good conversation about that. So that being said, being around all these people, what would be your takeaway from being in these conversations, being in these lunches, and getting in these rooms that people would only dream of, right? And what allowed you to get into those rooms? What did you bring to the table? They're like, because not everybody's gonna be like, hey, grab a seat. You have to. They will. It could be a matter of like seconds, where they'll qualify you and be like, no, right, or yes or no.
100%.
So what did you do? Because what happens is you have to build a name for yourself and a reputation. Yeah. And you said it before. The only thing you can take with you, right? Menace blew up and is dog shit now, right? But like, I still take all those relationships from that and those experiences, and I take my name. Like, no matter what happens to my roofing company, what happened to Menace, like Jason Payne is Jason Payne. That's how I roll.
Absolutely.
And that's who I am, right? And that's why I came back, right? Because you're like, Menace this, Menace is like, I don't. It's like, I'm friends with Jason. Whatever happened with Menace, like I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
You know.
I literally don't care. Yeah.
So
You know, and just go on the backside of that, like when you're people building your brand and image enough, like I didn't even need to get the whole story. I showed up here today and was like, I'll figure out what happened when I got here. Like I trusted you enough, just meeting you a few times that like I didn't even need to hear the story from you. Like I knew, for one, you didn't do nothing shady, and like two, I'd probably figure it out before we got on the air today. You know, other than that, like it wasn't a big thing to me because like you've built enough and you show me who you are as a person.
And in the next tier of that, and also that social media too, because I know you follow me and you like my shit, and I'm like, he's seeing, so being able to put your story out and the authenticity of that on social media can really help you build credibility and rapport instead of having to sit down and. It's all about it's kind of sales too, right? Like
Everything
you sit down,
sales. Everything.
It's like
sales.
you sit down at the table. It's like, oh, let me tell you my story. It's like, dude, that's exhausting. Well, what if you followed me on social media for months or years before that to get on your radar? That's how I got on Sean's radar. Oh, you don't know the story.
No,
before you answer this question, so Menace wasn't even a thing, wasn't even an idea, and about a year before that, so about 2 years ago, Sean's dog died. For his not Gunner's his current dog. Anyways, one of his dogs died, and like he had a really big, he did a bunch of posts and stories about it. When I really hit him hard. One of his favorite dogs, had him for over a decade. And so what I did is I had a friend of mine named Taylor Victoria, that she's an artist here locally.
Drew my picture.
Do I have a picture?
No, it said you have him draw a picture.
Yeah. But a mural, like a handwritten mural, cost me like, I don't know, $2,000 or whatever. Yeah. But I was like, okay, so
what's that connection made for you though?
It gets better. Yeah. So I was gonna send it, and I was like, no. He's Salt Lake. It's freaking 13 hours one way from here. Yeah. I drove she does a collaboration, so she does a time lapse of doing it. So she does a time lapse of literally a blank canvas to like the done, and then she does a little message on it. So like social media was able to put it on their pictures, send it to him. I don't think he probably wasn't married to Sax by then, but they were dating or something. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I sent it to him, tagged him. He's like, dude, that's dope, cool. And I was like, I want to physically come hand it to you. And he's like, okay. And so he's like, come to my office. Just like you said, hey, come to my office, come sit down for an hour. And I'm like, okay.
Did you have the same experience as me where you pull up at the door, like, is Sean Wayne here? And they're like, no, but I can help you.
100%. Yeah. Well, he was actually at the gym. He came in like dripping sweat. He had just pulled up.
He works at the treehouse right there.
Yeah. He had just pulled up from the gym. And they're like, oh, he's not here. And I'm like, okay. I was like, oh, wait. And they're like, oh, what's this and this? And I have a mural. So they're like, what's this guy doing, right? Mm-hmm. So one of my core values is give first without expecting anything in return. And I've lived by that since I was a kid. Life. Since I was a kid, my parents, thank my mom, and my dad, they embedded that into me. They're like, dude, just serve, give, and you'll always be taken care of.
When it's your time, it's your time.
Always, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I did that. Menace wasn't a thing. Conferences, speaking, stages, it wasn't even created yet in the universe. And went up there, took a picture with him, and ironically, I'm wearing a freaking Lands Not Sheep shirt, right? But so I got on his radar. He has a shop. If you go into a shop right now, it's sitting up in his storefront.
Really?
Yeah, that drawing. So I was like, he's never gonna forget that, and who gave it to him, right? And so you gotta get their attention. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, go back to sales. Like I had to get on his radar. Do you
remember back in your mindset right there, like what you're thinking, or like how did this come about? Because
dude, yes.
And then how much did you think like? Were you thinking that, and this is for your viewers here, were you thinking then like, okay, this is going to cost me $2,000. Like how far is that $2,000 going to go for my life after this is all said and done? Or are you not even thinking about the money factor are you just thinking like, I just got to get this connection in this relationship?
Well, I'm very aligned with him, right? Okay. Second amendment, the whole 9 yards. Like I eat, sleep, drink, everything that he's about. Like we are very, very aligned. Sure. And when you align with people like that, I'm like, dude, this dude's my spirit animal. Yep. And then he gets married and he's talked about, they have their podcast. I'm like, dude, like, me and my wife struggled hard, and he's been a huge reason. Just listening to him over and over again, I'm like, oh, I need to do this, and need to man up.
Shout out to Sean for that. Like, I love
dude. Sean's a freaking G.
Wives and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
I love it.
And make it cool to be happily married. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many dudes that are always looking for the next chick out here, being shady and cheating on the women out there. It's like I love dudes that just have no problem showing their wives and are proud to be happy and show like that, because that's what it's about, bro. It's about like having a partner and like building kids, and, like letting your legacy go. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
and that's what my biggest thing is. I was trying to, as we were doing the whole Menace thing, I tried to separate family and that in that particular business. Dude, that's exactly what it did. It created a wedge. I'm like, dude, and he's like, no, they need to be involved. Their kids are involved. Like, there's no filter. Everything just here. So I started doing that with my wife. My marriage has never been better, ever.
It's awesome.
Thanks to Sean and Sax and the podcast and being on, on the social media and whatnot. So this was like 2 years ago. Internally, I was like, I don't know how, I don't know why or what for, but one day, I'm not going to call in the favor, but I'm like, one day this experience is going to come up. Sure enough, freaking about a year later, almost to the date, we, want to throw an event, whatnot, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, I'm going to freaking ask. I was like, we need Sean. Like, Sean would be great. And we already had Wags. Wags already agreed to it because, Kent's also, when you transact with somebody and then it becomes a transformation, I transacted with Kent first. Now it's a transfer. We're buddies, all that kind of deal. And Wags was there, spoke on his, on his panel and all that stuff. And because I transacted with him, I was in the VIP. Well, guess who's sitting in the VIP on the couch? Daniel Fleshman. And then A-Rod. And then Elena Cardone. And like all these people. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, that's a line.
And it wasn't like a fanboy thing, right? Oh my gosh. I was like, geez. And Daniel was literally sitting next to me like, what's up, man? What do you do? And I'm like, dude, like.
That's another thing too, is that you gotta once you get there too, it's like when I like say Ed always talks about you gotta get in the room, but like this, like once you get in the room, like then you literally have to like learn how to act over.
You gotta work the room.
Yeah.
So it's
sure.
one thing
it's not just getting there like you can't say nothing because no one will even know you or remember you.
So I stole this from Grant, but we talk about one of my other core values: get attention, keep attention.
Yeah.
Because some people will get in the room, but then they want to take selfies with everybody. I'm like, dude, like it's not the reason why you're in there. It's
if you made it to the table, don't be the first one to do an Instagram freaking story. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like those dudes are there, bro, and they're not doing it. Like wait till someone else does it first, at least.
Also, Justin Colby?
No, I don't.
I'll introduce you to him.
Okay.
Super good dude, does real estate in Florida. He's super tight with Kent in the real estate game. And anyway, so it was Kent's wife's birthday. And Justin Colby was there. It was after his event. Ironically enough, just like you said before, go to dinner. And we're doing our thing. We were there with one of our friends. There's 3 of us there. And all of a sudden walks in Kent, Justin Colby. But however many, the stud table, for lack of better words, right? I think it was the last day of his event. And it was her birthday. It was Seema's birthday. And so I go to the bathroom on the way back. I was like, hey, I got a hold of the waiter, waitress. I'm like, hey, I was like, here's my card. I was like, take a picture of it, flip it over. I was like, here's a zip code. I was like, I don't care what that bill is. I'm paying for that. I leave. They'd just gotten there. And we'd been there for like an hour and a half. So we already done. They'd just gotten there. And there's 8 people or whatever. And they're, drinking or whatever. They're going to be there for a couple hours. And sure enough.
Those tabs aren't cheap.
No. Well, same thing. How much was it? I don't know. Probably $2,000 to $3,000 bucks.
Say 2 or 3 grand.
Yeah. With some alcohol, 2 or 3 grand. But I didn't care because I was like, I wanted to make an impression. Right. And I want them to know, like, not that relationship can be bought, but like, one, I wanted to thank him. And I said, hey, thank you for throwing that event. You didn't have to do that.
You're not playing around. You're serious.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, it's like, I'm not a fanboy. Like, I'm going to be in this. I want to be in this game. You're just however many steps ahead of me.
Yep.
Right. Like, I want to
100%.
be on Chappy's level. I'm just not there yet, but I'm working my way there, slowly. And so from there, then we have our conference, our MenaceCon in January. Well, all those guys they're all over again. Guess what? We go to dinner with our all the Menace guys and our spouses and employees and whatnot. We have it inside the glass door, sitting down is Justin Colby, Kent Clothier, all those guys. And same thing. So I go to the bathroom, or I went out to go get somebody and bring somebody in or whatever. And sure enough, I see them there, and I was like, hey, who's waiting that table? Like this guy. I'm like, hey, not if, but when, when they go to check out, and they'd been there already, so they were going to leave before us. So I said, bring the bill, paid for it. Say, I don't know, $1,000, $1,500, whatever. Smaller group, but that's not the point. It's not the dollar amount. It's the. And one of them slugged me on the bicep. The other one hit me in the back of the head, and said hi and bye and whatnot. And both of them like, that's twice, you fucker. That's literally what Ken said to me. Ken has a potty mouth. I love it. It's freaking funny. But he's like, that's twice. And that was a year ago, over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Remember the other one?
You remember that one too, right? And so go bring this all back in all together with Sean. So we now have an opportunity to. He was kind of ghosting us. He was kind of blowing us off and whatnot of coming to the conference. So we leveraged our relationship with Wags, who already agreed to it because it was at Kent's thing, and buddies with him was like, hey, want to come speak? Blah blah blah. He's like, cool, we'll do this. And I was like, hey, do you mind like a simple text message like, hey, come to Menace with me or come to the conference with me? And it was like, dude, freaking fly on the same plane together. You live like
to do that.
Yeah. So I had Wags reach out to Sean because I wasn't getting there. I had some sort of attraction with him, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
So I think the icing on the cake, apart from Wags doing that, is so he's not LDS anymore, but his kids are. Some of his kids are. His daughter goes on an LDS mission, and he takes a picture, the last picture he takes before she gets on a plane to go to Provo, the MTC Missionary Training Center. And it's her in her dress, and she has her name tag and all that stuff, and Sean's standing there. And I literally took that picture off of social media, sent it to my artist again, and I said, hey, I was like, I need this one quick. And turn it, it was like $2,500. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not the point. I was like, if I can get him on a stage, like,
yeah,
on my stage. No, and then he's on my podcast. No, I got the reels. I got the podcast. I got, he's on my stage. I got selfies. I mean, more.
Your whole brand credibility.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I got a cell phone. Oh, another thing too, little cheat. Sean, I didn't do this on purpose, by the way, until I realized later. I was like, how genius it was. I said, hey, let's take a picture. And he's like, with his dog. So when his dog died 2 years ago, we did that one. And he came in and we took a picture, and I said, I was like, he either took it with his phone or I took it with my phone. And he was like, oh, send it to me. I'm like,
yeah, what's your number?
How do you send a picture? I was like, yeah, dude, what's your cell phone? Boop, 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 boop,
Dude,
boop.
that's my move.
And I'm like, save it. Oh, it's genius, right? And so I've never.
You're not asking.
Has anybody ever said no though? Has anybody ever told you no?
Never say no to that.
Never
say no to that.
Yeah.
And you're just, but it's like if you look at the world, it's like sales right there. All you're doing is assuming the close.
Yeah,
You're not giving them an out to say yes or no. You're telling them what's your cell phone number.
Yeah, and you have to respect that. I respect that phone number and what it comes down to. I got just how it is. Right? I got Brad, I got Kent, I got Sean, I got a handful of people in here. But the point of it is I'll hit him up every once in a while. I'll thank him. He had shoulder surgery, right? Just getting back from that and whatnot. And but I sent him that mural, and that's when he was moving warehouses from his current one to his old one to his current one. And I sent him the same thing. I did a time lapse, did a little note on there. And what I didn't do, because my freaking stupid partners told me not to, and I should have, is I just sent it to him instead of delivering it. I do. It's minimum 2 days, right? Driving all freaking day.
Yeah.
Doing it. I was like, I could have gotten in front of him for an hour or 3, maybe even possibly dinner or something. Maybe longer, met Sax more. That would be the first time that I met her. I've met her 2 or 3 times since then. But, like in just that more intimate, just building that relationship, making it a stronger relationships. Yeah. Because some of your relationships are like I said, transactional, or they start that way, or it's not very deep or strong. And then you have relationships that are super deep where anything that you say goes. Yeah. Right. And so that's kind of that all that comes around. So before we wrap up here, I want to know, what advice would you give to our listeners of how to leverage relationships, but by being yourself, by being your brand?
I would say you just always got to remember, like, there's no other one of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are your own unique self, and Love it. There's so many people on Instagram nowadays. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's better to be like your own true self, and then like you can go get whatever you want or any connection you have, like, just by being genuine. You know what I'm saying? And like, sure. I feel like we've said it multiple times. It's like, dude, just be genuine and be honest and like mean what you say and say what you do, and people will follow suit. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason that the Dan Fleischmans and Sean Wayans are all where they are, because they're like masters at filtering through the bullshit and seeing who's good and who's bad. And like, you don't waste 2 seconds on that thing. That's what I feel like I'm the best at too. Like, I can meet a dude within 2 minutes. I know if I'm going to mess with you or not. And like, I know if I'm going to mess with you, how deep of a level I'm going to actually mess with you. For the most part, I honestly think like within 2 minutes, I know if I could trust someone, like literally hand them $5,000 within 2 minutes of meeting them. But like
that quick, huh?
When I was in prison, like prison taught me so much.
Is that real quick? Is that a skill?
Yeah, a big.
Or is that like a God-given talent? Or is that
both?
A little bit of both.
I'm a firm believer that like I heard Cody Alt say this the other day. Like you can have God-given talents, and then like you can come out of nowhere and like kind of make them. Just like it helps to have it inside you already. But like no matter what, you can train yourself to do anything. Like you can rewire your brain.
In the gospel world, they call it the gift of discernment.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. So you're saying it's not necessarily a God-given talent, but it's also part of it is a skill, certain triggers, right? Absolutely. Certain red flags and indicators.
When you like legit run a prison yard, bro, like you'll have like, I would have 2 youngsters coming to me saying the exact opposite stories, like to a T, completely polar opposite stories. And then I'm just like, and I have to, no joke, make a decision right then off like who I believe,
who's gonna die, who's gonna survive.
And then the other guy, a lot of times something really bad's happened to this dude, and it's like,
sure,
but you got to just know. So like I've always been like really, really good at reading into situations and people, and I look at every single thing, like not just the scene, but all what's surrounding the scene right there.
Sure.
Because you got to always look at that. And like I learned that since I can translate that out here, like I have like a 5 steps ahead on the rest of the world, because like most people are still trying to figure out like whether they're trying to figure out if this guy is good or not, or if I trust him or not, or on top of that, they might just be like figuring like they have no idea what kind of person this guy is, and they're going to waste years and years dealing with this guy on a level they should have never dealt with him. And they could have learned that within 2 minutes if they would have applied stuff like that and like looked for little nuances or little, hints, like there's red flags that are going to come up all the time. And then, it's when you find out someone's all bad or something like that, and you're like, God damn, I should have listened to all those red flags. I knew it. Like, dude, my wife, the red flags are there for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
My wife had that gut feeling with with my old business partner.
Yeah. Save yourself the time. Go off your gut feeling.
From day one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I told her again, I said, one, I'm never going to have any of my businesses ever go against my wife or anybody involved in it. Like if you're not pro my wife and you're not on the same team as we are, you're out.
Yeah.
Or I don't want nothing to do with it.
Same goes for me too.
Yeah, like true. You know what I mean? For real. So number one. Number two is I banked on my ego and my pride of like, I'm a business owner. I built a $10 million company. You didn't type deal. Not like to shun her away, but like that I had more knowledge and that gut feeling that she had. I overrode that by my experience or by my, simply just my pride.
Yeah.
And it fucking burned me hard because she was not on page with him since day one. Literally day one. So 13 months. Literally from day one, it started like this. I mean, it was small. And then after 13 months, and she was the one that ended up finding it. And she's like, and you got a baby on the way.
Yes.
And so with your girl, like, there's nothing worse in life. I'd rather lose $10 million than the words, I told you so.
Oh, yes.
From your spouse.
For sure.
From your spouse. Friends, buddies, whatever. Shut up, right? Mm-hmm. But like your spouse says that, and you're like, that is next level, like, oh, talk about prison guard, shank and twist, type deal. Like, there's nothing worse than that from your spouse. That is, I told you so. Because that means that she had already told you and warned you and prompted you, and for whatever reason, you didn't fucking listen. And that's been 12 months of me doing that. But I've learned my lesson. And since then, I've never been closer, never had more support. And if she does have, ironically enough, it wasn't really about decision making in business. It was people.
Yeah. Because you can't be in business with a person if they're not a good person.
Yeah.
If they're not a good person, they're never going to do good by your business.
Yeah. But the filter, right? Talking about social media, holy balls, right? People,
lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, lipstick on a pig, right? And so like she saw the pig, but there was the makeup was so good that I fell for it, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And so but yeah, so since then I'm like, dude, she has that gift that you're talking about. Maybe I don't have it or haven't developed it yet, or she's naturally a pessimist. I don't know if you are. I'm very optimistic.
No, I look at everything like I'm looking for the lies the second I meet somebody.
Oh,
no joke.
So she's also been through the ringer too.
Maybe that's what helps. I didn't realize that, but like, the second I meet someone, it's like you don't already have to co-sign someone to like make them good. Like, but I'm off the rip trying to see like what I could find that's not truthful, what I can see that doesn't align with what I think how this stuff should be.
Yeah.
But like I told you instantly, I'm trying to make these judgments on the fly. You know what I'm saying? To save myself years of time or thousands of dollars in business or whatever the case may be, because it's going to save me in the long run.
Yeah, and so that's crazy. So that gut feeling, I'm like that, and now I have that experience now, and the triggers of like doing your due diligence, finding out stuff, and when you have a prompting, or when or she says he or she or whoever says, or even your gut says, hey, look into this, instead of just like, no, he's good for it, or this will be okay, or this or that. It's like,
why not look into it extra?
Yes.
What's it hurting you?
It might be time or some money, but like at least at the end you can say, "Oh, I checked that box."
Yeah,
there was like 5 boxes.
Not having to co-sign everything again because you're already going to know it's a yes or no. You know what I'm saying? So it saves your time on every step of the way after that, just by doing a little bit of research.
Yeah, and so that was the biggest thing. My wife's like, "Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 boxes that I asked you to check and you didn't." And then
shout out to your wife. I want to meet her. And good job on this.
Her name's Heidi. She's a G. She's actually been on the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was like my third or no, she's I'm releasing hers, I think, today or tomorrow. She's episode number 9. I think we're in the teens already, you and I. But yeah, she's a freaking G. And we just had an event 2 weeks ago, and it was 2 days, 8 hours both days. And we said, hey, what's your biggest take? Actually, it was 3 days. What was your biggest takeaway? And most of them said, your wife. I did I literally brought her up. She was in the back. She came to swap me vehicles to wrap my truck.
Good wife.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was like, hey, come up here. And she's massive introvert, like naturally. Yeah. Massive introvert. Like she hates any microphones, cameras, anything. She wants nothing to do with it. I'm the exact opposite.
Same.
And so I bring her up and I talk for a panel for 30, 45 minutes, and some dudes, I'm trying to get feedback from the audience. And I'm getting this and that. And all of a sudden she comes up and there's 500 freaking hands. of asking questions like, hey, what do you do with your spouse? And how do you communicate with them here? And when do you know, like, is there a dollar amount? At what point do you like trust them to make a decision, but then you want to see the numbers and amazing questions.
Yeah.
Just by freaking bringing up my wife, I'm like, sorry, you're speaking at every event from here forward.
Right.
And she's like, fuck you.
But people like seeing the wives and the husbands doing stuff together too. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's a real thing. People don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everybody's dealing with it. You just are. You and your girl dealing with it. Like
100%.
You just are, right? And so it's kind of funny how you're just, anyway. So wrapping it up, relationships, building those relationships, leveraging those relationships, being your brand, right? A little recap. Being your brand, being who you are. Yeah. We didn't touch about it enough in regards to being relatable, right? Off camera, we were talking about how you've been through jail, you got the tattoos, you've seen some crazy shit.
Yeah,
I haven't been in jail. I don't have tattoos, and I haven't seen it, even to the 1000% of the shit that you've seen, right? So I can't relate. That's what I was talking about. Your buddies with Justin Mercer, all those other guys. It's funny. Those are like, if you have tattoos, you're like already buddies. Yeah, you got tats? Cool. Like you like my sales manager.
Neck tats were good.
Yeah, my buddy's got Carlos, my sales manager. He's all tatted up. You guys would be best friends.
Dude, this is my neck tattoo. Is one of my last ones I got. And it's so hilarious. I'm running a 4-yard, like in there straight triple OG. You know what I mean? I get this thing, and my dad comes up to visit me, and he's just like, "You freaking put another tattoo on your body where a shirt can't cover it. I will cut you off until you get out of prison." I was like, all right, it kind of ruins up my plan. I was going to get the other side of my neck done. I was like, I'm done with that. So I was like, my dad pulling an OG call on me, and I'm like literally running a 4 with a bunch of murders there. My dad like just checks me and visits. I was like, all right, no more neck tattoos for me.
It's like you get another one and you're out.
There was the last one I got to. It's so stupid. I fought it off for so long, and then one day I was just like, screw this. I'm getting a neck tattoo. Who cares? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it. I got to visit my dad, almost beat my ass in front of everybody.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But you can tell that story, right? And so by creating a relationship with somebody and having that in-depth conversation instead of like, hey, who are you? What do you do? It's like, hey, where'd you get your tattoos? And oh, you were in jail. Cool. I was in jail, or my dad's in jail, or this and that, or whatever.
I was getting takeout at Yogi's Grill, and the dude's coming up. He's like, and I always tell people like, he's like, yo, some nice tats, man. How old are those? I was like, I got them 20 years ago in prison. And he's like, oh, I got mine in prison too. And I was like, yeah, I just did 12 years straight. And he's like, I did 10 years. And he was like out here from St. Louis, literally looking for a job. So I literally put him on my podcast and gave him my phone number and stuff like that. But it's like, you never know who's standing right next to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You literally never know who you can help.
Well, and you can be relatable too, right? Because if I didn't have those tattoos, or what if you just said, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but didn't say in prison?
Yeah, I always
right?
say that, yeah.
And I know why you say that.
How much money you spend on those tattoos? Like, none, just 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years.
That's what I always say. No, they're free, just 12 years of my life.
Well, it's a conversation starter.
100%.
Right? And you never know where that relationship's going to go or how it's going to, help you. Or you can, or flip it around instead of being selfish, like how that relationship can help you. Flip it around like, maybe I can help that dude.
And you can do it like, you asked me about my network. I don't ever like to say stuff like this, but I firmly believe that, like, I don't think there's been a dude that built a bigger network than me in under 2 years. Like, I didn't know a single person from
scratch.
From the jump. And I'm like, I've never ran a single ad. I've never paid for one follower. I've never paid for done anything. This is all word of mouth and getting out
organic,
getting out there and knowing people. 70% of my connections I've met at gyms, and I just go and approach people at gyms. Like, I have a rule with myself. Anytime I'm going to a gym, like, I don't leave the gym without talking to someone new that I don't know.
Oh, like when you go out of town or you go
anywhere. I bounce around to gyms all over the state right here. I go to Lifetimes all over the way. And I literally do that just to meet new people at the gym. And it's like, I'll drive over to Tempe Lifetime just to go work out. And then it's like, and I go talk to the one person. And of course, it's always a person I was like, what are the chances this guy was at the gym right now? You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, leaving it. Sure. Like, bro, it's so worth it. It's like, it's an old saying, the closed mouth never gets fed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you never know who's sitting right next to you. You never know who's sitting right next to you. You never know if you could be helping him. You never know that this dude could make you $10 million just by opening your mouth up to him. You know what I'm saying? You might be the missing link to what he has going on already. And you never know this if you don't open your freaking mouth. So many people are scared of being judged, and so many people are scared of, like, I don't know this guy, I'm nervous or something like that. It's like, bro, man the fuck up. Like, that your bills don't get paid by being nervous. You know what I'm saying? Like,
totally.
You got to be a grown man in this world and, like, handle grown man decisions. And it's like, if not, like, you're going to be thieving from people or something like that. Like, you look at it like that's your paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
totally.
how that's why I was so good at car sales. Like, you dumb it down in the world, and it's so easy for people to understand. Like, the person that was sitting across from me was, like, literally stopping me. You could look at it like this. They're either stopping me from, like, making my paycheck or feeding my family, or I look at it like this. Like, that's my money right there. All I have to do is get him to agree to buy this car, and that's the only thing stopping me right now. So, like, you figure out whatever the hell you have to do to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? It's just,
but like, do it ethically.
Of course, ethically. But it's like, you just got closing. You know what I'm saying? Use Andy Elliott's closing tools or whatever. You just figure it out. Like,
Well, Grant Cardone talks about that. He's like, who's got my money?
Yeah.
And he did a whole thing. So he has 2 daughters, right?
Yeah.
Scarlett and oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, so he has 2 daughters, and he did an entire segment or podcast, or whatever, on the saying, "Oh, don't talk to strangers." And he's like, why are you telling your kids not to talk to strangers? They're the ones that have your money.
Yeah. Right.
It was so good. Like, oh, your mom and dad give you money? Your friends give you money? Last time I checked, none of those people give you money.
Smart.
Ever.
Yeah, it's real
So
smart.
like, why are you hanging out with them? Right? And there's a book, Never Go to Lunch Alone. Same thing. It's like, why? And
That's good.
yeah, so another Grant story. But yeah, he, in one of his books, he talked about that. He used to go with his VP or Jared Glant or whoever it was, right?
Yeah.
They go to lunch all the time. And one of his mentors, like, he's like, why would you ever take one of your employees with you to lunch? He's like, oh, to talk and hang out and, talk about business and scaling. He's like, that dude is never going to transact with you. He's never going to give you money. You actually give him money.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you ever, he's like, don't ever do that again. And that was like a light bulb that went off.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But like, and I love that too. It's funny in high school, like the popular kids, I wasn't a popular kid, but everybody knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this, fast forwarding 20 years, I didn't know it. Dude, I just got a lead yesterday from a chick that I haven't talked to since I graduated high school, but she was on cheer. I was on football. We didn't like date or anything. We're just casual buddies, right? Actually, I think we in elementary school together. Okay. And so we've known each other, and I haven't physically seen her since 2005. It's 2023, like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
But we were on social media. She just gave me a lead for her mom's house that needs a roof. $15,000 roof.
There you go.
And I'm like, but that came from freaking high school, right? Because
you were genuine to her like back then, probably, and she knew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just relationships, right?
Yep.
Just being good to people, and you had the cool crowd, and it's funny. Like there was the LDS crowd, there's the football crowd, there was the emo crowd, right? And there's there's all these different crowds, and I wanted to be friends with all of them.
Yes.
I don't know why.
That's all it was.
And I just like people too. Like I told my wife too, she hates this because she's introvert. I'm like, I would literally invite a couple or a family over to dinner every single Sunday, a different one, 52 times a year.
Wow. If I could.
Yeah. I can only get to do it like once a quarter because she's just like, it's a little much for me, right?
It's a job, right? That's what
Jasmine
says too.
Yeah, it's a huge setup.
Yeah.
This is exhausting. And I'm like, this is so fun. She's like, do you understand all the shit that has to go in before
and for the
and
most
after?
part, just us talking. You're just literally sitting there smiling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
how's it exhausting?
But for them, it's mentally because
for sure,
unless you're an extrovert and like you thrive off of that, it's literally an energy, sucker for them.
For sure.
So anyways, all right, I got Chappy on here. Where'd you get that nickname, by the way? Okay. What?
No joke. I just have a chapstick addiction.
You have a chapstick addiction.
Yeah, that's it.
You always have chapstick.
Always.
Are you shitting me?
Swear to God.
I thought it was like I was waiting. I was like, okay, we're gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. I was like,
I want to hear the story about this chapstick.
He's got some crazy ass prison. It's like, well, this one time, I was wearing assless chaps, and then whatever.
So they give you shitty chapstick in prison, and it's like it has the stuff and it like cuts your lips. So like once you use chapstick, you're always gonna need it. I'm just at the point of no return, bro. Like I've been using chapstick for so long. I've used it 20. I'll go through Burt's Bees in 3 days.
In 3 days.
3 days.
I go in like 3 months.
Oh,
I lose it before I even go through it all.
20, 30 Burt's Bees just in my nightstand. Oh, everywhere, bro. I can't even lay on the couch without a chapstick in my pocket.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I couldn't watch a TV show in my house. Like, so
it really is an addiction. Like you got to have it in your pocket. And if you don't have it, like
I can't even get the episode without doing it probably 3 or 4 times. That's why I even set it out during.
Yeah, I saw you do it a couple times. Like, oh, he's got chap lips.
That's it. That's where the name comes from.
It has nothing to do with chap lips.
No, nothing at all.
It's just there's some sort of not emotional, but there's some sort of trigger there that.
Also, partly started because I did used to box, and I was small in prison. So if you hold this in your hand, your fist is 10 times harder than a regular fist.
Sure.
So like I was always taught by my uncle used to box, like hold a lighter in your hand if you're fighting a bigger dude, So like
anything solid.
I use this in prison. So this chapstick also helped my chap list, but also
there we go. There's the prison story. I was like, wait for it. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a partial prison story with that too, but yeah, just the chapstick addiction, bro.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So Chappy. Okay. There you go. So anybody want to know why Peter Meyerhoff called Chappy? There you go. I was like, because some people call you that and some people don't. And I was like, is that like a super cool friend thing?
Yeah, if you're my boy, you can call me Chappy. You can call me Chappy.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
That's funny. But your name's it's not on Instagram or anything. Nope. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, guys. So this is the Sexy Business Status Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Payne. Got Peter Meyerhoff on here, also known as Chappy. Don't call him that unless you're my friend. Dude, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Just, like I said, spitting fire. And I really hope those listening that you open your mouth and that you learn to connect with people and be genuine, be authentic, but also learn how to create and generate relationships and help people. And then in return, you can leverage those relationships to take your business, your family, or your income to the next level.
Absolutely. When you're scared to say something, like the worst thing that can happen is you not saying anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're scared to speak your mind up or say something to a guy that's standing right next to you, the worst thing that could happen is you not saying something to him.
Well, going back to sales, right? If you never ask, the answer is always...
It's always a no. That's what I said. Like, worse, and that's why I started that with DMs. I was hitting up people. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I would say that. I would preface it by saying, like, if I don't ask this question, it's a no already anyway. So, like, I have nothing to lose here. So,
I've never asked Daniel to be on my podcast.
Yeah.
Guess what? I have a 0% chance of him coming, sitting in that chair. Why? Because I never asked him.
Yep, 100%.
There you go.
Make sure and go buy my book too, Against All Odds.
Oh,
It just
yeah.
got released today on Amazon.
Against All Odds.
Yes,
it is on
All
Amazon.
Odds. Yeah, it's on Amazon right now.
Dude, I'm gonna buy $20.
Yeah, it'll be on Kindle, my website, and then check out my podcast, Roll Call with Chappy. And thank you for having me, bro.
Roll Call with Chappy. Yeah, I'm gonna buy $20. I bought Tommy Mello's Elevate.
Yeah.
And then I have a couple other ones in there. So yeah, every time I have someone on a podcast or they have a book, I'll buy it and
That's
get
my
all
speaking
my
fee
team
right now for most places. They buy my books, I'll come speak for free while the book's out.
Well, we got one in July.
Dope. I'm there.
So we'll buy. I don't know. People are gonna be there, but we'll buy that many books.
I'm there.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, bro.
For having me. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.